So we're here to talk about two main issues: is making you more money through better vendor sales, and losing you less money, which is essentially developing a management system and teams that take a lot less time and less drag when managing all these vendor sales after it comes to the logistics and completion of the event. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first. Is the microphone good? Everyone can hear? I have over a decade in producing sponsorship activations at various events and festivals nationwide. Some of these are directly for brands like General Mills. A lot of them are for experiential marketing agencies. When I'm talking about sponsorships during the presentation, it's more about the commercial booth spaces and the lower tier sponsorships that are more on-site activation focused versus the title and stage sponsors. I also have some festival production experience. I produce as a volunteer a charity yoga and music festival in Malibu called Imagine Yoga Music. So I have a little bit of background from your aspect as well. And a lot of what we'll talk about today comes directly from our clients, from events that we talk to, the different challenges that they face. And all these experiences actually led me to found Events Locker. And a quick background on Events Locker for those of you who aren't familiar. One is, as I mentioned, we help sponsors find events, which we do as a consulting relationship. So sponsorship first and as a service, meaning, yes? Yep, thank you. Cool. So we'll get asked by, for example, Dean Foods will say, hey, we want to promote a new ice cream brand on the East Coast at 10 different festivals. We want 20 by 20 space. Here's our budget. Here's our target demographics. Go book us events. So that's our event sourcing as a service. And then eventslocker.com encompasses two main areas. The first is sponsorship marketplace, which allows events to sell quicker and sell more booth space and sponsorships. So our homepage looks a lot like Airbnb. There's a keyword search and there's a browse by city aspects, just like Airbnb, except you're finding different exhibitor space at different events nationwide. And the other aspect of our website is a intuitive vendor management platform, which is sold as a software as a service. And that really streamlines the whole vendor relationship, everything from the sale to the booth submission application, through payment, logistics, paperwork, everything up through the day of the event, load in, load out. So let's get into the sales aspect first. And again, when I'm talking about sponsorships or vendors, it encompasses, this thing has a mind of its own. Commercial vendors, exhibitors, on-site sponsors, activation space. Depending on how familiar you are with experiential marketing, those are all the different terms and jargon that's thrown around. So most of the problems we see selling booths really come into four key areas. The first is the event is not making key information that we're trying to determine whether we want to come in or not easily available. Key information, things like attendance, demographics, core examples of multimedia. So if events don't have a good sizzle reel or pictures of their crowd, all those types of things, so you can really get an understanding of what the event is and what's the experience going to be for consumers coming through your booth. Another issue we see is confusing or overcomplicated commercial booth pricing and packages, meaning some events out there will have 20 different options for sponsorships, and within that they'll give you 24 add-on upgrades, perks, all these kind of things, and it muddies the water, because when you're sourcing events from a program's point of view, you're really looking to do initial research and get quick information so that you can then narrow it down, and then after that point you'll focus in. So one of the things that drive us nuts when we're sourcing events is when we ask how much a booth price is, and they go, well, how much do you have, right? And that happens more often than you think, and the reasoning for that is there's been this logic in the industry for a very long time that for anything that's considered a higher level commercial space or sponsorship, you want to build a custom package to fit exactly the needs of the sponsor. And that's been taught for a long time. However, with the rise of experiential marketing programs, those lower sponsorships have become much more transactional, and we just don't have the time to work out a custom booth price when our main focus of buying a space at your event is to interact from a field marketing perspective with consumers. So it's much better to at least have a price in mind and to offer your price first. Because what happens when I hear what's your budget is I go, well, it's $3,000, but since you asked, it's $1,000. And the events think that, oh, well, I pushed them from $1,000 to $1,500 because they countered me with $1,500. But really, if they just said, oh, it's $3,000, I would have been like, oh, well, here's $3,000. It's in my budget. So the event's actually losing money sometimes by trying to customize pricing too much. A great way to increase your sales is to advertise better. And by that I mean having accurate demographics, marketing data that the sophisticated buyers are going to need when they're making a decision to pull the trigger on your event. Typically, there's 4 main demographics. This is age, ethnicity, attendee origin, and income range. Obviously, this will vary from event type and the scope of your event, but those are the general ones. Also nice to haves in your advertising materials are marketing statistics. Social media is big here, obviously, with Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat before it pretty much got taken over by Instagram. And any multimedia. So hiring a sizzle reel, if you haven't done it for your event yet, a professional videographer that can really take good footage and tell the story of your event is huge. And also, really important with your multimedia is that you don't just show crowds and you don't just show your event setup, but you show the target demographics that you're advertising, so that advertisers know, okay, you say you have this demographic, but your pictures are all 80-year-old retirees. Then I don't think you have a lot of millennials. So it's important to be accurate and have your multimedia reflect everything that you're advertising from an informational standpoint. And then the kiss your marketing is keep it simple, stupid. Again, for the commercial booth space and even for the bigger sponsorships, a lot of times people will pay a lot of money to these really fancy PR companies that will put out these comprehensive 20 megabyte media kits, and a lot of times you're only looking for 3 or 4 pieces of information. You're combing through a 30-page packet to do it. It's very confusing. So keep it simple when you can. Don't muddy the water with overly complicated charts and graphics, and you'll be a lot better off. So when you're talking about advertising your space, it's also important to talk about pricing. And I talked a little about not customizing, over-customizing your options. And the key thing with determining how much you're pricing your booths at is to do your research. So that's looking at a few different criteria based on other events. It could be the type of event that's similar to yours. It could be other events in your market that have similar attendance, or it could be more demographic focused. So events that not only have similar attendance, maybe in a big market city or a small market city, but also if they have the same types of demographics as your event. Those are great ways to find out if you're pricing accordingly. Some other ways to tell are if you are selling out your event 6 months early, that's an awesome pat on the back, but could you have raised your vendor prices 15%, 20%, made 20% more income from that by just holding out another few months to sell out? Or if you are finding yourself with 30-40% of your vendor spaces unsold a month out from the event, and then you have to do a ton of additional spend, are you pricing yourself too high? The other thing is to make your prices transparent and online. So it's a lot easier for people that are marketers, professional marketers, to scope out your event if they can quickly and easily fill into their decks or their spreadsheets, however they're scoping your event, and 50 other events if they can get the pricing right away. So what frustrates people from a sponsorships perspective is if we have to email info@event.com, festival.com, online, and then 3 days later we don't get a response, and then we're trying to Google the different sponsorship person and then trying to guess their email equation to get to them to finally hear a response back. By that point, half the time we've already presented it to our client if we're an agency, and they've already made a decision on 3 other events that are now first in line. So that's why pricing online, it's not going to price you out of anything, because if you were too expensive or too cheap for them, they're not going to come in anyway. It just lets them be more educated and come in more targeted, and it also closes down your sales cycle. So your sales cycle then doesn't become, well, let me present the pricing. It becomes, let's close the deal on the phone and then send you over a contract for signature. So the final piece is minimizing the expenses put out to manage all of these vendors. I think this is a shake sensitive. This is kind of like a Wii controller. So managing vendor systems, making teams more efficient, and trying to take out all the drag and the bog down, what I call kind of the crud of event production, chasing down paperwork, payments, all the hassle. So let's talk about some major areas that festivals get held up with. And I'm talking about if you've ever managed a vendor village, is that like 70, 80-hour work weeks, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to your event, and then 1 hour of sleep the night before because you're trying to get everyone's ducks in a row and dealing with these people that still haven't turned in their COIs, stuff like that. So biggest issues there are way too much back and forth, meaning too much chasing down. Hey, where's your payment? Hey, where's your paperwork? Hey, yeah, we already gave you your booth number. No, you can't change it 4 times. Stuff like that. Tracking vendor paperwork, which is my favorite, is always, hey, guess what? You didn't put us as additionally insured on your COI. So let's maybe fill out according to the. So having clear instructions, and then tracking the correct forms when they come in within that, it's really important. A lot of people use Google Sheets to manage their vendor villages or vendor populations. It's hard to do that when you have 5 or 6 different people on the same spreadsheet. So we'll talk about what to do as far as that in a minute. But chasing down payments, companies that are saying, hey, call us with your credit card info, or fill out this PDF authorization form for your credit stuff. You're almost doing the work as a free customer service department for your credit card company by doing all that stuff manually now with today's technology. And finally, vendor logistics, the lowdown nightmare. If you're a producer or vendor village manager, getting 40 calls from vendors who can't open the PDF on their iPhone the morning of the event, and they're running a half hour late. So their panic from 30 different vendors is then transferred onto you, and then it just becomes a nightmare when you're really trying to talk to your higher level sponsors, your artists, wherever you have, to really make sure the experience is the best you can, and not getting pulled into this, oh, how do I load in, where do I pull my car in? So the traits of a good management system are one that is responsive. By that I mean all of your info is quickly and accurately pushed to your vendors. Any updates or responses or questions can be easily handled by your staff, not by you, but hopefully by delegated to a if you're a producer, your vendor coordinator, whoever's responsible for those groups of vendors can easily access that information and also communicate with vendors. It's reliable, so there's not a chance where you're overwriting people's information. Or another issue that can hassle a vendor is if they have actually submitted their paperwork and someone's missed updating it in the system, so then you're chasing vendors down for contracts they've already signed or insurance documents they've already provided. So these are things that can frustrate vendors as well. Why is it bad to frustrate vendors? Because then they're going to be frustrated setting up their event, they're going to give less engagement to your attendees, and everyone's going to overall have not as good of a time. So that's why it's important to reduce errors and stuff that'll create more, because they're already freaking out, they're already stressed, they're already running late and worried about their Square readers not working, stuff like that, right? Finally, be efficient. So automate when possible, meaning batch emails, stock, whether it's Google Forms or an automated vendor management system, whatever you can do to really make the process more efficient for your team and save them the manual effort of having to reach out and have conversations about stuff that's really municipal and administrative. That's a good idea. But communicating smartly, you really want people to be able to, and this is more for your team too, you want to determine, okay, when vendors call in with this question or this question, this is an email situation, right? Or this is a direct them to your website because the information's already there. Or this is a, hey, we can upsell them, this is an opportunity, let's call. So defining what parameters of communication, how you're responding to vendors is a great idea to help your team be more efficient. So having a great management system set up really allows you to have faster vendor sellouts. Happier vendors lead to higher quality activations. Everyone has a better time. If you have vendor splits with craft vendors and food vendors, you get more revenue in hand from that. And obviously, the happier attendees are, the more will come back next year, and the more money you make from everything else. So that's my talk. It's pretty short and sweet. Love to open it up to discussion and talk about different specific challenges any of you guys have. Any other questions? Please.
I have one.
Yes.
So I'm just going to throw it out there to anybody that I'm a part of this Indisputed Wine Festival. And so I reach out to vendors and wineries,